for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm Jimmy Murphy. He's Pierre McGuire. And Pierre, soon we will welcome on John Liu, who you've worked with many times over the years of TSN. He was based in Montreal for a while and is now back in his home native city of Winnipeg. Looking forward to speaking to him. He'll be on with us in a second. And Pierre, just quickly, and we'll elaborate more after we speak to John, but a quick reaction to Jarmo Kekalainen being fired by the Columbus Blue Jackets.
He was in a tough spot, obviously, and I think it already started before the season, Jimmy. The Mike Babcock situation was not very easy for him to digest, or for ownership to digest, or for John Davidson to digest. And then obviously the team kind of sputtered coming out of the gate, and that made it that much more difficult. One of the things I admire is when you watch their team play, and you and I have talked about it a lot, Pascal Vincent and Mark Recchi have done a nice job coaching that team. I mean, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries and some marginal goaltending most of the time, and they're always working. Like, the team is always working. So I don't think this is a coaching situation. It's more of a team-building, player procurement kind of a thing, especially at the professional level. Their amateur side, I think, has been really solid in Columbus. I think it's more on the pro side. But I think the thing that probably hurt Jarmo the most this year was the Mike Babcock situation and then the bad start. And I think that's probably why he's no longer employed by them.
All right, we shall continue that discussion later, but let's talk some Winnipeg Jets and probably some Montreal Canadiens as well, because he knows both teams very well, and that's John Liu of TSN joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Hey, John.
Murph, how you doing? Pierre?
Yeah.
John,
Great to
really
see you guys. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. Great to see you.
You too.
Yeah. I know you guys have worked some events over the years, have you not?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of them. World Junior, Olympics, Stanley Cup playoffs, lots of them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. John, we'll talk. I want to talk a little bit Winnipeg Jets right now, and then we're just going to get kind of into your journey as a journalist reporter with TSN as well, and maybe some memories with Pierre as well. But overall, just quick thoughts on where the Winnipeg Jets are as the stretch run starts to really gear up here.
I think right now they're in a little bit of a lull. It's what I would describe as the ebb and flow of hockey season. Every good team goes through it, and the Jets are in the ebb at the moment. They through November, December, and into January, they're red hot until they had an 8-game winning streak. Then they kind of hit a rough patch. I think injuries started to catch up to them because there were some key players. Gabriel Velarde out since the early part of the season. They never really got traction with the centerpiece in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Then Kyle Connor was out just as Velarde was coming back, and he was gone for about, if I remember correctly, about 15 games. Mm-hmm. And they weathered the storm with both those top 6 wingers. But then when Mark Scheifele went down with a suspected groin injury, he was only out for about half a dozen games. But it really sort of showed that it's a player who has always been, for basically his entire career, the number one center of that team. But he's been playing much better two-way hockey this season, ever since he signed his contract extension that'll kick in next season. And it really kind of showed that the Jets, they needed a little bit of they needed shoring up in the depth department, because there was no one center who was able to step into the breach and fill the void that Scheifele had vacated. And so his injury kind of coincided with this little stretch where they did go into a bit of a skid, went winless in 5 straight, which was a season high for them. We're giving up more goals than they had because they were on this ridiculous streak where they were giving up 3 goals or less. And it was historic. It tied a modern era record, and they just went to prove how strong they were at 5-on-5, because certainly special teams hasn't done it for them this year, especially power play, which right now has gone like 9 games without scoring. And so they haven't been able to find a magic bullet to correct that part of their game. But 5-on-5, despite their struggles, they've been strong all season long, and that continues to be their bread and butter. And so if they can if they can solidify their lineup a little bit, I think they still need a little bit of help on defense with a few weeks to go before the trade deadline. I think that they'll strengthen their lineup that much further. And if they can somehow get the power play working, then they should be able to return to a decent contender status with the other elite teams in the league.
Speaking of defensemen, you've got two of the best defensemen that nobody talks about in the league. One of them is obviously Josh Morrison. The other guy is Neil Pionk. And I know he started out on Broadway, but I mean, people don't talk about Neil enough, and they definitely don't talk about Josh enough. You're there, and I know how thorough you are when you cover people, John. Take us inside both of those guys' mindsets and why they're so valuable to the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I'll start with Josh Morrissey, because he's just got, from the time they drafted him, he's just gotten better and better. But where he really where he took a quantum leap in his development was at the start of last season, or prior to, when Rick Bowness took over as head coach. And during the offseason, he had a conversation with Morrissey where he said that, look, when this is Bones speaking, when I was the head coach in Dallas, we had your name circled on the board all the time. And I want you to be in the Norris conversation this coming season. And so basically he enabled Morrissey to really up his game, to reach heights that he hadn't up until that point. And so what we saw from Josh Morrissey fresh out of the gates was just another level in his game. Like, he's always been a really brilliant skater, but I mean, for me personally, I hardly ever got to watch Morrissey. When I was out in the Eastern Conference, I didn't get to watch Morrissey play very much, but watching him every night, it was just mind-blowing how good he is on his skates. Like, his edge work is fantastic. He's really quick, dynamic, lateral movement. He's not a blazer, but having said that, his skating is just world class, and his puck handling, his vision, he's just an absolute joy to watch. And I've seen him over the past season, like coming into this season, becoming a little bit more physical. He's not a big guy. He was only about, 5'10", probably. I'm not sure what he's listed at weight-wise, probably pushing 200, but he's not a physical defenseman in the traditional sense, but he angles guys off well, boxes out. Because of his skating ability, he's able to get in lanes to be able to kill plays. Reminds me a lot, and I don't want to put him in the same category, but just the type of play like Nicholas Lidstrom, that his positioning and skating, his hockey IQ are so superior that what he lacks in size, he's able to make up for in hockey IQ and just the total package that he is otherwise. And his offense just has gone to another level as well. He has a sneaky good shot, sneaky hard shot, and fantastic passer, good playmaker. So he's really the complete package. And the fact that he was just outside the Norris finalists last season, that was really an endorsement for the campaign he had. And I think if the Jets hadn't hit this recent skid, we'll see how they finish the season. But Morrissey he hit a career high in points last season. And I think that this year he could be a point per game blue liner for the first time in his career if he starts to up his production once again, if the Jets hit their stride, because he's a big part of their offensive attack. A lot of his points come on the power play, but again, getting back to their man advantage, they're not producing there right now. So that part of Morrissey's production hasn't, that's slipped a little bit as well. But from Neil Pionk's standpoint, his teammates joke about this, and I can't help but think this too. If Neil Pionk was about 2 or 3 inches taller, he'd be considered a real stud defenseman, simply because he is a real tough customer for a guy that isn't that big, but doesn't back down. Like, really gritty, has a real nasty streak to him as well. Not dirty, although there are some teams fans that might disagree with that, like certain incidents over the recent years. We won't name names or stir that pot, but Pionk, he's good offensive skills, good shots, plays second power play units, good defender as well. Last season he had injury problems, which he never admitted to. Well, he kind of obliquely admitted to when I asked him late in the season, but he never divulged what exactly was bothering him. But longtime Jets reporters who've covered him since he came over in the Jacob Trouba trade could tell that wasn't the same Neil Pionk. And so he was playing with something that he probably should have sat some games, just for his own good and for the team's good. But having said that, he's come back strong this season, and be interesting to see what happens with him, because as a right shot defenseman who can play, he doesn't kill penalties for this team, but he does play power play, but logs strong 5-on-5 minutes. If the Jets don't choose to extend him, I think he'd be in demand around the league, simply because he could fill a very important role with most teams who are looking for a guy who could be a second pairing defenseman.
Yeah, there's a team just down the road in Minnesota that would be looking for a kid from Hermantown.
Well, yeah, yeah, I'm sure for him to go home too, he would love that too.
I brought his name up.
Yeah, Minnesota Duluth, right?
Yeah.
Born in Omaha, Nebraska, though. Pierre, did he grow up in Minnesota though after that, or did he?
I don't know about the whole time, but he went to high school there. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But he considers he very much considers himself a Minnesotan, though. Like, very connected. Like, the Jets, they go to that well often. Quite a bit of success. So.
Border close. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, they know what the weather's like here too. So that's smart asset acquisition and management, because hey, you know what? I grew up here. I can say Winnipeg is not exactly going to be it's not a vacation wonderland, and I know it's on the lists of pretty much every guy that has a no trade or no movement clause. But guys who love the wilderness, that want to be in a hockey market but don't want to be inundated with the attention or the scrutiny, this is a good spot for them. I mean, Dustin Bufflin loved it here, like the fishing.
Follow left Los Angeles. He loves it there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a super outdoorsman. Yeah.
Just loves it.
Yeah. Yeah. Connor Hellebuck, the fishing here, he loves it here as well. I mean, guys that love the wilderness and the outdoors, and that don't want to have to drive an hour to get to the practice facility. They can find their niche here and be quite happy.
Let me ask you, John, going back to the beginning of the season, the off season there, all we heard for so long, dating back even to last trade deadline in 2023, was that, Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele were done there. And, it was only a matter of time before both would either be shipped out or they wouldn't be there any longer. And then all of a sudden, they both sign identical contracts, long-term, and now they're pretty much there probably for the rest of their careers. What happened, like, behind the scenes to all of a sudden, just basically from the outside looked like a 180?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there were trade discussions, or testing the waters, as it were, from both sides, like from Winnipeg, from Kevin Shovel-Dayoff's standpoint, searching, other teams inquiring. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything that was serious or that would have that went far enough that could have amounted into a significant trade or trades. And the thing too is that if you go back 2 off seasons when the Jets were when they missed the playoffs and Mark Scheifele made those comments, musing out loud about his future. I think ever since that point, a lot of people in this market, whether fans or media, never quite let go of the notion that at the conclusion of his current deal, maybe Mark Scheifele wouldn't have Winnipeg in his cards. Because the thing is that he's been on a bargain contract for the last half a dozen years. Like for his production and what he's been able to, or plays first power play, logs the most 5-on-5 minutes amongst forwards, and was producing pretty much a point per game pace for the better part of his deal. Well documented that, the defense hasn't been the strongest suit, his strongest suit. But the thing is that if he had been for his entire career, if he had been a complete two-way centerman, there's no way there would be any entertaining of trade conversations whatsoever, right? And so there were a lot of, I guess, threads that led to speculation and honest inquiries that led to the belief that maybe last season was Scheifele's final one in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. From Connor Hellebuck's standpoint, at the locker cleanout press conference back in we're in 2024 now. Last year, after Vegas dispatched the Jets, Connor Hellebuck made comments about wanting to be part of a winner, that he wanted to chase a cup.
Yeah.
And that he would be open to wherever that may be. And so immediately red flags started waving in this market that, oh, does that mean that he wants out of Winnipeg, that he doesn't see the Jets as a contender? And so that led to a summer, the whole summer, where there was a lot of speculation about what the future would entail for these two guys that were heading into their contract years this year. And so give Kevin Cheveldayoff credit for this as well. That's nobody, absolutely nobody saw this coming when it was on the eve of the season, that both players got signed as a package deal, because they talked together about this, about signing, about extending, about becoming Jets for life, as you said, Murph. Yeah. And I think a big part of what sold them was that Kevin Cheveldayoff he sat down and spoke to both players and laid out his vision and his plan. And I can't speak for every GM in the league, but it sounded to me as if players aren't always privy to that type of information or those conversations. And so the fact that Chevy sat down his two cornerstone players in situations where it's like, well, do you want to be a part of this, or are you going to look for greener pastures? And so that was a big part of what sold them on staying here, is that whatever Chevy told them, and we're not privy to those conversations, those discussions, what his plan, what his vision is moving forward. And I think a lot of that has to do with who the Jets have in the hopper. Some of their prospects, that they have some pretty high caliber prospects that are getting close to being ready. And, just the roles that Scheifele and Hellebuck would play, and the commitment that they would have to retaining certain veteran players, and what type of players they would go after to try to make a Stanley Cup champion in this market. That sold the two on the notion of being Jets for life. And so, yes, they came as a package deal. And so that was significant, simply because, again, you talk about their uncertain futures. Well, people were thinking that connect the dots A, B to C, that if they don't sign them, well, does that mean that the Jets are going to be heading into a rebuild? Because without one or both of those players, where are they? Because this was at the point too where already they earlier in the summer, with all the uncertainty with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Well, the only certainty was that he was going to be gone, right? But and again, that was another part of the thread that helped sell Scheifele and Hellebuck on signing, is just how well Cheveldayoff did in that trade with LA. So so there were a lot of factors that went to this. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but there's no short or easy about those two players.
How did it go so bad for Pierre-Luc Dubois there? It went bad in a hurry, and it's gone bad in LA, John, and you're behind the scenes. Probably more than most of us, what the heck happened?
Well, I only covered Pierre-Luc Dubois for the one season, last season, his final one in Winnipeg, Pierre. And what had happened was that near the end of the calendar year of 2022, he had a hip problem that started flaring up, because he started the season strong, fresh out of the gate. And again, I talked about watching Josh Morrissey every game. Well, when I got to see Pierre-Luc Dubois every game, a healthy Pierre-Luc Dubois, I was blown away. Because I would only ever see him
yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like when he is on, he is just dominating, like big and strong and physical, draws penalties. You can't get the puck off of him. You put it along the wall there, he's going to just control play down low and find his wingers. And when he was on, he was an absolute beast for the Jets. But then he had this hip problem that started flaring up near the end of the calendar year. And his game started to slip. His production started to slip. He wasn't as assertive. And the thing is that if he didn't have, if there wasn't his history about how he left Columbus, I think more fans would have given him the benefit of the doubt, right? That, okay, this is a player that clearly physically something's not quite right. But when Pierre-Luc Dubois is not on because of his track record, I think people sort of automatically jump to the conclusion that this is more that there's an effort issue afoot, right? And so I can't speak to that specifically. Just know that he was playing hurt. And I mean, especially a guy that plays a power game like that with a core issue, that's he's going to be rendered ineffective, right?
Yeah.
And so the second half of the season, he kind of struggled along with the entire team as they went through that period of about a month and a half where they almost flushed their playoff spot down the toilet. And then once they got into the playoffs, same thing. You know, in the latter stages of that Vegas series, he started to disappear. And so one of my questions to him on locker cleanout was, it's like, what was your health status through the playoff series? And he said that issue that had been bothering him in late 2022, it had flared up again. And I know in hockey culture, well, in sport culture in general, is that the mentality is that if you're injured, you're not playing. If you're hurt, you're playing and you're 100%. There are no degrees of how hurt you are. If you're playing, you're 100%.
Right.
That's the mentality, right? But to me, it's like, because I come from a medical family, my rationale is that if you're hurt or injured, that's the reality. It's not an excuse, but there's a reality that your mind might be wanting to do all the things that you believe you should be able to. But if your body can't respond, that's just the reality. It's not an excuse. That's just the reality, right? And so, but again, people, because Pierre-Luc Dubois didn't have the benefit of the doubt, people believed that was an effort issue, right? Okay. And so everybody knew he was gone. Like that last day from the podium, that was the last time we knew that he was going to be addressing the public and the media as a Winnipeg Jet, because 2 months later, Cheveldayoff pulled off the big trade, right? And so it's really, Pierre, it's really unfortunate that things ended that way, because Dubois' dad is part of the Manitoba Moose organization, has been for quite a few years. And so there was that nice family connection here. And, we thought that being in a hockey market where he had responsibilities and profile and stature, that might have been enough for him to convince him to re-up with Winnipeg, because, with Scheifele and Dubois healthy and producing in the 1 and 2C spots, that's a very good looking middle. But then we get into this season, and it's like not close enough to the LA situation to know, but there are a lot of a lot of conjecture, speculation, whatever. And already, Todd McClellan, a good man, lost his job as a result of those teams' struggles, not the least of which includes their new 3C, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Pierre and I were talking about yesterday. You wonder, is there something about the passion? We don't know. We're not in his head. We're just trying to figure it out. And it just looks like a guy who's not in it right now. And I like what you say, that it's not necessarily he doesn't care, but it's just maybe so many things have distracted him that he's just not all there mentally right now to be playing the game of hockey that he needs and where he needs to be. So, I hope for his sake and the King's sake, he picks it up there. But man, Cheveldayoff, another, you talk about the job he did bringing in Hellebuck and Scheifele. I thought that trade, he really did well in that trade. And I think I want to ask you too, John. He's taken some heat there in Winnipeg. Did the return he got in that trade in what looks like kind of a pickle, so to speak, that he was in? He's like, he knows he has to get rid of the guy, right? Yeah. The other team knows he has to get rid of the guy. So, sometimes they can hold him to the coals. It looked like he did pretty damn well.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Cheveldayoff has a history of doing that.
Yeah.
That when his back's against the wall or somebody's holding a gun to his head, he does his best work. Like, whether it was Evander Kane or Jacob Trouba, most recently Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm missing one or two because he keeps hitting home runs, or at least managing to salvage situations where you'd think that he's bargaining from a position of weakness, but then he manages to come out smelling like a rose. Yeah. And I think this one was his magnum opus, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
Simply because not just the
great word.
Yeah. But and again, like all three of the players acquired in the Dubois trade, they are in a little bit of a lull right now. Gabriel Velarde, he was strong when he came back from his injury, but he, along with the rest of his teammates, he's having trouble producing as well. Alex Iafallo scored the other night, and so he broke he snapped a slump. But the thing about Iafallo, though, is that he is such a Swiss Army knife, a honey badger, that plays up and down the lineup, zero maintenance. The coaches love him. He plays one way all the time, plays in all situations, low cap hits, good teammates. He's just when Kevin Cheveldayoff made that trade, Iafallo was the guy that I was most curious to see, because when I watched the LA versus Edmonton series in the previous playoffs, I never watched Iafallo play before that closely. And he just kept, my eye was just drawn to him.
Yeah.
I kept noticing him because the guy just didn't stop.
He worked so hard.
Oh, absolutely. Never quit. So, I mean, that's, when with that memory fresh in mind, when they made the trade, I thought, well, if the Jets make the playoffs, wonder, chances are that's the type of player you're going to see. That's one of those guys that's built for the postseason, right? Yep. So I think that he'll have a pretty important role come the latter half of April and moving forward. And Velarde, young player, growing this season, a setback with that knee injury, right? So I think a lot of not development time, but just adjustment time with the Jets. It's been lost simply because of the length of that injury and the nature of it, because they know that they wanted right from the gate to see what Connor, Scheifele, Velarde would look like. And they've only had like a half a dozen games together. And because the team is slumping, Rick Bowness put Nikolai Ehlers with Connor and Scheifele over the last 3 games. Because Ehlers he's their top play driver amongst their forward core. And but you know what, Velarde, he's going to be a very good player for the Jets, simply because, again, watching him when he was healthy and at his best, his size, his reach, his ability to make really good reads, especially play down low on the power play. He's either in the bumper position or primarily at the net front. So big, strong guy with reach. I'm just really curious to see if there's an opportunity, or when the opportunity or the place for him to play center on this team might arise, because it's been he's been in the center position very sparingly this year. And so maybe we'll see it next year. But again, right, really good acquisition there.
Jimmy, what's the name of this show?
The Eye Test.
In order to appreciate Alex Iafallo, you have to have the eye test. The numbers to it. He can affect the outcome of a game without scoring. And so those guys never show up analytically. And so I give Winnipeg's pro scouts a lot of credit, because he's a player, as John correctly said before, you have to really watch him to appreciate what he can do. And so you can look at all your computers and your forms and all the other numbers. He doesn't compute on that. So that's a really good job of pro scouting. And John, that was a great story that you told about him. I really appreciate that. Jimmy, one thing I really like about what John did in Montreal, he was able to do so many different sports, and one of the big things in Montreal, they never get enough credit. I know he's in Blue Bobber country now. He got to cover the Montreal Alouettes when they were really good. John, they were really good. And they had a player there by the name of Anthony Calvillo, who I don't think ever got enough credit for how good the Alouettes were. John, what was it like to cover those teams in Montreal, those great Alouette teams?
No, that was a treat, Pierre. Simply because Mark Trestman bringing. By
the way, got a job today, right? Or yesterday, he's back in the NFL.
Yeah, with Chargers, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I was happy to see that. But Mark is he's like the mad scientist, just absolute brilliant offensive mind, but type of guy who is all about building team is one thing, but building men, building good people. That was what he was all about. And just little details, like when he would run practices that the pace was very similar to game speed, and it was to the second. Stopwatch out, that all the drills in the various positions, like the defense, offense, then special teams, the linemen, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, everything was on a stopwatch. They'd blow whistles as soon as they would switch, and it was very militaristic. Not in a negative sense, just very disciplined, very committed. when they would stand as a team for the national anthem on the sidelines in Molson Stadium, beside me or in front of me, depending where I was standing, everybody stood the same way. They would stand at attention with their hands in the same spots. They would not move. They wouldn't fidget. I've never seen anything quite like that. Wow. And that was really a reflection of the type of ship that Mark Trestman ran. Mm-hmm. Now, he was a taskmaster, like very, very hard to play for, very super high demands. But the thing is, you can't argue with the results, in addition to the fact that he cared very much for his players, cared very much about them as people. And so just a really unique coaching dynamic. And he was a real Papa Bear, too. I remember doing a sit-down interview with him one time, and I was questioning, asking questions based on something that he had said earlier in the week. And when we finished the interview out in the hallway, he tore an absolute strip off of me because he didn't like my line of questioning. He thought that I was trying to hang his receivers coach. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to do this. And so he just unloaded on me and started to walk away. And I said, whoa, hang on a sec. You can't just, crap on me and then just walk away. And so we had an honest conversation about where was I coming from, and came to a respectful agreement.
Oh, good.
But I mean, he was a real, he was real old school in certain ways, but very new age in others. Mm-hmm. And you saw the results you saw the results reflected in his methods, in the way that team was just so methodical, executed at such a high level, offensively, defensively, on special teams. And even though they lost that Grey Cup in 2008 in Montreal, the following 2 years, I mean, certainly 2009 with the extra man and the Riders extra man, it wasn't a Picasso or a masterpiece by any means, but they still got it done. And then the following year, they did a better job at winning the Grey Cup back to back. And so
there's some good parties. Jimmy, I can just tell you this, there's some really good parties at my house in Montreal when they were going through these Grey Cup things.
Good stuff. I was up there for the one they lost.
A lot of fun.
Good stuff. Let's stay on the coaching note then. What's your take on Rick Bowness so far, working with him? I known him as a fan when he coached the Bruins many moons ago, his first gig as a head coach. But it's from afar, it's great to see that he's still going and that he's reinvented himself from afar. That's what it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, working with Rick has been it's been a real treat, simply because again, you mentioned Murph, that's that's a guy that's in the 70 range, and so his experience in the game as a coach and as a player is that I learned something new from him pretty much every time he talks or when I chat with him. And the fun part is that, there's no way that we in the media are ever going to trick him or get him to admit something or whatever, just because he's seen it all. He's done it all. Yep. There's just no way we're ever going to get the upper hand on him. But having said that, he has this real fatherly vibe and energy about him, that he's just very folksy and genuine. And he's that way with us in the media. But the stories that we hear from the players that's what he's like. Same thing. I was talking about Mark Trestman, that cares very much about his players. Well, Rick is like that too. That he has conversations with his players all the time. Guys on the team say that, he asks about my wife or my kids or my dog or my family or my hobbies and things like that. That it's not always all about the game, about hockey, that he is, sort of like a dad, like an uncle. And so he's and well, just with his content or his longevity in the game, the respect that he garners from the players, and just his way about of getting the best out of his players. There's been much better buy-in this year. Let's put it this way.
100%.
He was I think he was banging his head against a brick wall at certain times last year, and it came out publicly, right?
Yep.
That he was fighting tendencies within the group that were hangovers from the previous season and the season before that, and that ingrained bad habits that were part of the culture on the Jets. And but you don't see that this season, with the change with Adam Lowry as the captain, and they could not have appointed a better guy as captain.
Agreed.
And
Pierre, you love him, Pierre. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've known that kid a long time, and I'm a big fan. He's a real good player, but he's a really good leader.
Yeah, and just a tremendous person too, Pierre. Yeah,
totally
that. Yeah,
totally.
And
it's cool. Sorry, John, I didn't want to interrupt you because we're up against the clock here, but I want to ask you a couple. Rick Bowness, Jimmy, 5 decades coaching. He's been coaching in the NHL for 5 decades. That's pretty amazing, being around the NHL. But here's the thing. I don't even know if Johnny knows this. He played for the Montreal Junior Canadiens. His roommate was Mario Tremblay.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. Okay. I'm just telling you. And I think Rick kind of helped Mario because Mario was the first 18-year-old player to ever play for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm just like back then it was a 20-year-old draft. He was 18 years old. And I think Rick Bowness helped influence Mario Tremblay. And he was a very important player for the Montreal Canadiens when they were winning cups. And I think that kind of set Rick up to be a coach. I really do.
Yeah. I just like guys that, he, like you referenced there, John, he called them out in that, party and press conference before the summer. And it must feel good to him that so many came back this year with a new approach, with determination to answer that bell for him. And that had to feel great for him. Like when he got back, because there were, like we were just discussing earlier, there were so many questions about the lineup. There were so many things that were going on. So much turmoil, we didn't even get into Blake Wheeler, but just so many things that were going on. So for him to come back and then for them to have the stretches that they've had this season with the buy-in, you mentioned that, going with the 5-on-5 play. That's a great story for a coach to come in there and let it simmer within his players' minds over the off season. And then they come back and they react that way. That's coaching.
Well, Murph, they had one-on-one meetings, like to clear the air after Rick's very pointed comments after the Jets were eliminated by the Knights.
Yep.
And then 2 days later, the locker clean out the
exit meeting,
the insurrection, if you want to call it that. That's that players that did come back, they all had individual meetings with Rick to make sure that it's like, hey, are we good? If there's anything else that needs to be said, we're going to say it now. And they did that individually. And so they came back to training camp this year and, fresh slate, clean slate. And you see it. You do not, if there were issues that had lingered, you would not see the level of commitment from all the players, especially at 5-on-5, the way that they did. The way they protect the house, the way that they kill scoring chances, eliminate high danger chances. For almost the entire season, they're the top ranked defensive club. They give up the fewest 5-on-5 goals in the league, right? If Rick had not been able to get everybody back on the same page, you wouldn't have seen that level of performance from this club so consistently.
He's a great story. He really is. Yeah. And John, quickly before we let you go, I know you love it being back there, but how much do you miss Montreal?
I missed. You know what? I was thinking about the other night, Jim. Yeah, I was thinking about the other night. Last night. That's because I'm still keeping track of what's happening in the Canadiens, especially with Juraj Slafkovsky. Yeah, and so when I catch a game there and I hear the goal horn and I hear the roars from the crowd, this is not a critique of the Jets. This is certain realities economically of the market right now. They haven't had a lot of sellouts this season.
Yeah.
And so, I was thinking about a full Bell Center the other night and thinking about, it's like, that is a special place.
It really is.
The building, the crowd, the city, the market. It really is. So yeah, there are certain things about Montreal. We can get into a longer discussion about that another time. But that's what came to mind immediately is just that, there is something special about, doesn't matter what night of the week, but a full Bell Center with the crowd in full voice.
Jimmy, you know what's pretty cool about John's career? Think about it. He had a chance to be there for Mr. Belivo's funeral, had a chance to be there for Saku Koivu's return. Like, these were all moments that I remember being around John at that time. Like, these are monumental moments. You know, the team finally getting to a Stanley Cup final, even though it was a COVID Stanley Cup final. John was there for that. There's a lot of stuff that went on that John had, you know, the opportunity to see in Montreal that most people can only dream about. And John, I have to think your time in Montreal, those were halcyon days in your career.
Eventful here. I wouldn't say halcyon because there was rarely a dull moment when I think about the peaks and valleys and the drama. There's not much halcyon time. But it was
for sure. But Jimmy, we'll have to get John to talk about this. The drama, we'll talk about what happened with PK Subban. We won't do it on this show.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about what went on. We'll get you back, but the PK Subban stuff, because I think that would be interesting for the fans to be aware of.
And also, too, so before we let you go, John, too, I want to just tell the listeners out there, too. So I spent some time up there, as some of you know, and I lived there for a bit, too. And I'm telling you, John and guys like Brian Wild, Frankie Gagnon, I mean, you guys took me in. And this is some little Irish guy from Boston. And I didn't know how it was going to go. But I appreciate all the support you gave me up there, John. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, hey, Murph, you're a great guy. We enjoyed hanging out with you and going for pints and talking hockey. So, hey, it's
good times.
You're an easy guy to love. I
don't know if my parents would say that, but anyhow, great stuff, John. We appreciate you taking it.
My pleasure, guys.
Yeah. And
great seeing you, Pierre. Great seeing you, Murph. Anytime.
Hope we can have a reunion in Montreal sometime.
I would love that. That'd be awesome.
All right. Sounds good. That's John Lou joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. And he's a great guy. Class act.
Oh, unbelievably smart. Really, really smart.
Oh, yeah. Well spoken.
As smart as he is, he's a better person.
Mm-hmm.
You won't hear one cameraman or one audio guy ever say, and a lot of those guys, they're on time. You know, they got to get stuff done on time. And so it's a pretty stressful type work environment. Never once I see John panic. Never once. And I mean, Olympics, World Junior, Stanley Cup playoff, lots of pressure. The Koivu thing, Mr. Belivo's funeral. Like, I can go down the line, all the different things, and never once did I see him panic. And I think that's a sign of a pro.
And he's stylish too.
Very well, different style. I don't think I got
his own unique style. I love it.
You could either.
He's a trendsetter.
Yeah, okay. I'll go with that.
Put him and PK together in the same show. That would be interesting.
That would work, actually. That would work.
Yeah, we should do that sometime.
That would work. Yeah.
Hey, let's go over it. We got a lot of comments lining up, a lot of questions there. And there we go. Evan says, get PK on. That would be fun. At
some point we will. I mean, he's kind of busy right now. And, you know, the one thing, having done it for as many years, I think it's 25 or 26 at the national level, people don't realize you don't have that much time. So all those guys that are doing that job, I have a ton of respect for them. And I kind of know when you can call them and when you can't. And right now, just before the trade deadline, is a tough time. It's a real tough time for all those guys that are involved with that.
For sure. Sure. All right, let's go to our questions here. And let's start it off. We got another video, and I know you've been looking forward to getting into this one. Another video question, or rather a memory from Evan McLaren for Pierre that he wants Pierre to elaborate on. So let's go to that right now.
You know, it's kind of an insane opportunity and a privilege that ordinary dummies like me just get to ask questions, and someone like Pierre with decades of firsthand hockey experience will answer those questions live on air. So I want to be clear, I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt or a smart aleck. I'm genuinely interested in the story and the perspective from Pierre's point of view, although it probably wasn't his favorite night of coaching. But I'll set it up. December 4th, 1993, Jaromir Jagr scores the winning goal in overtime against the Hartford Whalers. The final score was 7-6, and he scored right after coming out of the penalty box. And that penalty that he got, still years afterwards, seemed like he took it kind of personally. So I'm sure Pierre will remember what I'm talking about, and I'd like to hear what that was like from his perspective.
Pierre?
What a fantastic question. Thank you, Evan. totally forthright. I helped draft Jaromir Jagr, won the 91 Stanley Cup with Jaromir and all the Pittsburgh Penguins guys, and it was a phenomenal experience, and had a chance to work with him a lot during that playoff run. Then in 92, I was on the ice and worked with him a significant amount, along with Rick Kehoe, and that was an amazingly great time. One of the things I knew about Jaromir was he used illegal curves. Just the reality. So that night that you're alluding to, I remember it clear as day, Evan, and I didn't even have to check. I knew he had an illegal stick on the ice just before overtime, and we had made an unbelievably character-type comeback, and I was so proud of our players, and I wanted to give them every opportunity to win. So I called for a stick check on Jaromir Jagr with, I think, 3 seconds to go in the period. There was a face-off by our bench, and I think it was Patty Verbeek. I said, Patty, go tell the referee we're measuring Jagr's stick. They don't do that anymore, by the way. I think that may have been one of the rules. They don't change the measurement. But anyway, so we met. The referee looked at me and said, measure it. And Jaromir knew I had him caught. He tried to break the stick, but he got caught, and he knew it. And he went in the penalty box. He had a stick. Larry Murphy, with his vintage flip pass after they killed the penalty off, chipped it out in the neutral zone. Jaromir went in on a breakaway all alone, and did he ever give it to me when he went by our bench?
Oh, boy.
And you know what? He did. Hey, listen, they won. We lost. I'd try to make a calculated play to give our guys an opportunity to win. I thought it would have been a tremendous thing for our group. They didn't have shootouts back then. And so, we gave it everything we had. We made this valiant comeback. We tied it up, I think, 6-6 or 5-5, I forget. But I was really proud of our team. And like I said, I tried to give him every opportunity to win. And Jaromir, he let me have it. It was pretty funny. I look back at it now. I know Eddie Johnston, who's a real good friend of mine. Eddie was coaching Pittsburgh then, and he gave it to me too.
Doing your job.
No, but it's okay. Like I say to you all the time, Jimmy, I've told you this a million times.
Yep.
In pro hockey, if you take stuff personally, you're not going to last very long.
Exactly.
You got to understand it's a very competitive, emotional type place, and you just can't take stuff personal. And I did not. I was kind of mad that he scored. I'm not going to lie, but that's what happened. Evan, that's a great question. I don't know how you got that, but that's a good one, Evan, because that's exactly what happened. But I didn't even have to. I knew right away. Like I said, I told our guys, I said, be ready. We're going to be on the power play to start overtime. And they're like, what? I said, yeah, just be ready. And that's what happened.
And his number is it's going up to the rafters very soon, right? Was that on Sunday?
Yes, it's going up this Sunday in Pittsburgh. I think LA's there, if I remember correctly, just off the top of my head.
They're tail end of they're in Boston on Saturday, Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Pittsburgh on Sunday, and that's when they're going to do Jaromir's number. I couldn't be more pleased for him. You get to know a person, and you get to see how hard they work, and you're with them, an entire season or 2 seasons in this case with Jaromir, and you coach against them as well. I have so much respect for him as a player, as a person. He did a lot for people, and he never talked about it. But he said something the other day that I thought was pretty cool. He said, I must have been tough to handle when I was young. That's what he said in an interview. He says, and to all those coaches that I gave a hard time to, I'm really sorry, because now I kind of know what I was like when I was younger. I think it takes a lot for somebody to say that. And it doesn't surprise me that he would say that. I thought he was an amazingly gifted player, but I also thought he was an amazing trendsetter and a kid that had a lot of guts. He had a lot of guts. Boy, he was a tough guy. He was a tough guy and a really good player.
Well, I see there's some questions about, and we're not going to say that you compared him to Jagr, but you did say there are some similar attributes yesterday. And I see a couple of questions about Yuri Slavkovsky. If we can go to those, I don't know if you guys can find them there. I saw a few there. And by the way, Habs in MSG tonight. I believe Slavkovsky is been making people a lot of money in the gambling world, Pierre, with these goal props they have and point props. He is finding his game really, and not just offensively. He's finding his two-way game. He's starting to really understand what he needs to do in the North American game and how to succeed in the NHL. And from afar, I'm not there in Montreal covering him, but I mean, I'm talking to people that are, and like, this kid is fun to cover. He's got a heck of a personality.
Yeah, so I'll just give you an example. Here's the difference. When he was playing in Finland during the COVID year, he was playing as a third line player, and his coach maybe played him 8 to 11 minutes a game. And he hardly, I don't even know if he ever got any power play time. When I was there, he never played on the power play when he was in crew. So here's the difference. Jaromir Jagr is at that same age before his draft year. He's playing in the World Junior with Bobby Holik and Robert Reichel. I mean, come on. So you talk about being prepared and developed and ready to play in the NHL. And so Jaromir was just spectacularly well prepared. The only problem for Jaromir, and I've said this story in a lot of different situations, he had a hard time understanding English at the beginning, especially coaching vernacular. And so one of the smartest moves I've ever seen was made by Craig Patrick. It was a brilliant managerial maneuver. He went out and got Yuri Herdina from the Calgary Flames, who had been part of their 89 Stanley Cup winning. And Yuri came in as an older player. And part of why he came in the 90 fall season was to help Jaromir understand that he wasn't always going to be on the power play. And he was always going to be on the first line. And all this stuff kind of happened before we got Ronnie Francis and before we got Alfie Samuelsson. Brian Trottier was an amazing resource for Jaromir. But I'm just telling you, so there's so many things that happened to help Jaromir. But I thought the one thing that was really important for him was the development that he had before he got to the NHL. Safkowski didn't have anything like that.
Right.
Nothing like that. Was he great at the Olympics? Yeah, he played in the Olympics. It was a non-NHL Olympics in Beijing. He was the MVP of the Olympics. But I'm just telling you, this guy's going to be something special. I'm not saying he's going to be Jaromir Jagr because I don't think he will be. But I think there's a lot of characteristics in his game that are similar.
All right, next question. If you are the Ducks GM, Pat Verbeek, who is the first player you would ask for in return for Zegras?
It depends on the team, obviously, that you're going to deal with. But I would want a live wire up front. I'd want somebody that could score and probably play with some physicality. I think they're set up on defense for a long time in Anaheim. Pat's done a nice job with his scouts drafting. Zellweger was just up playing. I know they sent him back before they went on this road trip. They have enough defense that they could afford to trade Drysdale. Don't forget they're getting Cutter Gauthier there as soon as the Boston College season is over, and he will play in the NHL right away. There's no question in my mind. And he'll be an impact player in the NHL for a lot of years to come, barring injury. So Pat's done some really good work there. But I think they need an explosive, bigger body offensively. If they can do that, for Zegras, that would be great. I don't know where all the Zegras rumors came from.
He's from Montreal.
I don't know if there's because they don't need the
fit.
I've said this from the beginning. I don't see a fit there.
Yeah. If they needed defenseman, Pierre, there would be a great fit. But
they need D.
Yeah.
And Trevor's not a big guy. He's just, Montreal needs bigger guys. And so I've never felt there was a great fit there. Yeah. So
look, I get it too. And I understand it. And it's one of the things I love about the Montreal culture and the Canadiens culture is that the history of the Flying Frenchman and the finesse and all that, Pierre, is still instilled in a lot of Canadiens fans. And it's part of that culture. And, they haven't had a guy like that in a while, but you go back to maybe Kovalev. But I think they see maybe a lot of that in Zegras. But the problem is I just don't see the fit overall. Like, he doesn't fit to me with what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton are trying to do.
I agree with you. He'd be a really good fit, and I just don't think they would do it. But I think he'd be a great fit for the New York Rangers.
Yes.
I do. I do.
Yep.
I think he'd be a good fit for the New Jersey Devils. I really do. There's certain teams where I think he really fits.
Yeah.
I just don't know about in Montreal. Just the trade, the machinations, the trade. I just don't know if there's a fit there.
All right, let's go to the next question. Randy Workman, I'm going to ask, do you guys believe that Markstrom will be traded? Randy, I haven't changed it yet. I still think this is an off-season deal. I do think he does get traded, but I just don't know if it we already saw the reports that happened with the Devils. Supposedly they had something ready to go and there was a retention issue there, and things fell apart. It's a very, from what it looks like from the outside, Pierre, and I think you'd agree, it looks like it would be a very difficult trade in terms of all the parameters to construct heading into a deadline as opposed to maybe at the draft.
I could think of one team that probably is looking at it now and saying, maybe we can, but I just don't know if Calgary would trade him, and that would be to Colorado.
Yeah.
I know we both know they were tight or close with the Devils. We understand that. But Colorado, they really fancy themselves a legitimate contender for the Cup. I don't know if they can do it with the goaltending they have now. That would be interesting because I do think there's some fits with Colorado's team to Calgary's team for Calgary's needs, because is Tanev going to stay in Calgary? We don't know. Is Hanif going to stay in Calgary? We don't know. So if those two guys are dispatched, chances are they're going to need some defense. And so you look at it long term. Colorado's got lots of different things that they could, I think, trade to maybe upgrade, let's say, their goaltending.
And by the way, I saw somebody, I forgot who it was, over there in the comment section talking about potentially Jake Allen to Colorado. Darren Drager tweeting a couple hours ago that's nowhere close to happening. The teams haven't spoken in a few weeks, according to him. So I don't
see that being their target, but it's a fair question. I just don't see Jake being the target there.
All right, let's go. We got time for about 3 more. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Alex Evanowski, what's the plan in Columbus? They got amazing prospects, and I feel like they are close to breaking through. Am I right to feel this way? Maybe one more high draft pick and a trade deadline sell-off might be it.
So here, I don't know what the plan is, but I just like to connect the dots. When I heard that Rick Nash was going to be part of the selection committee, or his voice was going to be involved in the selection committee, right away I thought of, okay, connections to Rick Nash, London Knights, Mark Hunter. Does Mark Hunter have an opportunity to be the general manager in Columbus? I bet he's one of the candidates.
Yep.
I'll bet he is. And Columbus, by the way, Columbus is flying right now to San Jose. They're refueling in Kansas. I can tell you that right now. They are. That's where they're refueling. So I've been some texting me during the show. So anyway, so that's what's going on there. And I would say that that's just one candidate I can think of. If they really want to play it straight, Ray Sherrill's got to be a candidate. The fact that there are other teams that have looked past him, I think, is beyond belief bizarre. He's got to be a legitimate. Tommy Fitzgerald would be the first person to tell you. He's the general manager of the New Jersey Devils. That team was built by Ray Sherrill. He'd be the first person to tell you that.
He said it on our show. He already did.
So it's just, again, I'm not trying to be mean, but so whatever happened in New Jersey, that should be pushed aside with ownership and Ray or whatever. He should be a legitimate candidate there, and I have to believe he would be too. So there's 2, and I would say there's one more, but I'm just not comfortable saying his name right now because he's involved with another team, and I don't want to get him in trouble. But I think there are 3 legit big-time candidates that would pass muster with the ticket holders and the fans, the great fans in Columbus. And they're great fans. They're great fans. They do an amazing job there. Great fans. Yep.
All right, next question. Jeffrey B, do you feel Winnipeg might mortgage a piece of their future by moving one of Lambert, Barlow, McGuire with Scheifele and Hellebuyck smack in the middle of their prime?
No, so I talked to somebody the other day who's on the agent side, and I said the only way I would have done that Sean Monahan deal if I could have got Rick or McGuire, and he said, Pierre, that Winnipeg wasn't trading him. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, then I would ask for Lambert. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you, and he said to me, well, they're not trading him either. So I just don't think – I think they know they're in a real good spot. I think they know they're maybe a year away from winning. They're not – I don't think they're ready to win the Cup yet, but they got some good – Johnny Lou was right, Jimmy. They got some good prospects. I think Lambert's going to be real good. I think McGuire is going to be a different kind of good, but he's going to be a really important player for them.
Good stuff. All right, final question here.
Well, if you got a lot more, Jimmy, we can do a few more. I know you got a game, but we got time.
Yeah, we'll do. All right, we'll do 3 more. We'll do it. I'll get time.
Yeah.
5:34 train. I'm 5-minute walk. I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. Or you'll run down. You're in shape now. Come on.
Sure. Pierre, we got to talk about that off air. I got to get on your regimen. You got to help me out. We'll talk about that later. All right. Fishing asks, hello, gentlemen. What's the reason for the Arizona implosion? Well, I would just immediately point to the implosion around them with the whole ownership thing and the arena thing. That's weighing on the players, I would think. They don't know where their home's going to be. They don't know what's going on. There's stories flying everywhere. I think that's really taking its toll on the players.
And people don't look past them anymore, especially teams that are playing for playoff position, because they know they're for real. They know that Arizona's a much improved team. And so when they go in there now, like I watched the Minnesota game last night, Minnesota played to keep. They knew they needed those points. So now they've won 4 games in a row, I think, coming out of the All-Star break, and now they're relevant. They're actually in the playoff discussion. So I think it's a combination of things, but one of the things is nobody's looking past them. And I think they need to be aware of that.
Yep. All right. Let's go to another question. Could you see Savard fit in Edmonton?
I could.
Yes. It's a great call.
That's a really good call. That would be a place where I definitely could. I think Tampa, obviously, I think it was brought up yesterday, Jimmy, by one of our questioners. But yes, Edmonton would be 100%. It's a great yes. Yes.
Yep. All right. Next question. Alex Ivanovsky. Obviously, there's a lot of comparison between what Stevie did in Detroit and Tampa. I see the Sider Hedman, Stamkos Larkin. But who's Detroit's Kucherov going forward? Raymond, Carter M?
Well, the Carter M that he's talking about is Carter Mazer, who's a kid out of the University of Denver. He actually played for Chris Draper, and that's why Detroit knew him so well. Carter was a player. He played for the Little Caesars with Draper's son, Keenan. So he knows Carter Mazer really well. And Carter's had a nice year in the American Hockey League in Grand Rapids. He's a good player. I wouldn't say he's a Kucherov. No, I would not. I would say more like Raymond is. And, again, I think that might have been one of Chris's first picks as a chief scout for Detroit. And it was a really good pick. Yep. So, yeah, I'd say Raymond's more of the Kucherov style. Carter Mazer's a very good player, though. He's a pro player, Jimmy. He's part of Denver's national championship team. He's a good player, good kid, really solid hockey family, good people, really good people.
Stuff. All right, we'll do one more.
Of course.
Yeah, Jeffrey B. What should Pittsburgh do about their power play? They struggle to gain the line, and they give up chances shorthanded, taking away any momentum they might have built at even strength. Well, you know what, Jeffrey? They're going to have plenty of time to figure it out because they are not going to the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Jimmy said that. I'm not prepared to go there yet, but I'm getting closer. They're 30th in the league in the power play, Jimmy. Like every day I study it in the morning. And I'm like, are they ever going to get top 25? Like, what the heck happened here? And so Pittsburgh's power play, they broke it up. They've moved guys around. Letang and Carlson don't play together. Malkin's on a different power play than Crosby. I still think they should try to run it the way Washington ran that power play with Nicky Backstrom. I really do. Run everything Crosby. Run everything Sidney. And let just Sid control everything. Don't run it from up high. I know Letang wants to run it. I know Carlson wants to run it. Let Sidney run it, and then we'll see how it goes. But it's mind-boggling that power play is not good. It's crazy. It's just crazy. When you look at the assets, it's crazy.
Yeah. I forget when it was in the game last night there, though. There was one when they got a power play pair. They were only down by like a goal at the time. And, you could just see how deflated they were after. And then Florida just poured it on after. I mean, that game, Pierre, that we talked about a couple of days ago, body language. The body language on the Pittsburgh Penguins is scary. It's not scary, not good, is what I'm talking about.
You know what's amazing, Jimmy? You and I talk a lot about goal differential and how it's an important statistic. The only team chasing right now, relatively having a chance to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, are the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they're plus 10 now, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
goal differential. So, Jimmy, they're the only plus team chasing right now. You see what Paul Marie said after the game last night? He goes, everything we've talked about. The goal differential, Pittsburgh's tight. They're close. They're going to be realistic if they can keep that goal differential positive. He's right, but it's starting to drop. It's starting to drop almost every week. And so when you see that, if you're coaching, you kind of know this is a problem. We got to get back to manufacturing more goals and giving up less goals.
Yeah. And I think too, Pierre, that another thing that's got to be frustrating for them overall, and especially for him, is Tristan Derry has not been that bad this year. He's had, in my opinion, a solid year. I don't think he's
the most shutouts of any goalie in the league.
I mean it's so ironic that they still are where they are. They're so hard to figure out. They may be the most frustrating team to figure out in the NHL. They could be.
They're in the discussion. 100% they're in the discussion.
Yeah, it's too bad. But we'll see what happens. All right. We want to thank John Liu from TSN for joining us. Man, he was great. He was great. What great insight into that team we got today. For all you Jets fans out there, tell your other Jets fans friends to check it out and give us a like button, hit the subscribe button there. And thank everyone in the comment section and question section, and thank our production crew back in Montreal. And Pierre, tomorrow we will have another great On-Campus Friday.
Yes, we will. Brett Riley, the young head coach at Long Island University, will be joining us from Fairbanks, Alaska. So we're actually doing the show at a different time tomorrow, right, Jimmy?
I was going to just say, programming note. We will be at 1 p.m. Eastern instead of 4 p.m. tomorrow. So 1 to 2 Eastern will be live. Of course, you can watch it anytime. It will be available on YouTube, all your podcasting platforms after that. But if you want to tune in and ask us questions tomorrow, grab your lunch, kick back, and we'll have a hockey lunch.
Jimmy, are we allowed to announce maybe the potential for a live remote for the show, or is it still too early?
Let's wait till Monday. Let's because just in case. But we're very excited. There could be something coming that we're very excited about.
So
thank you. And we're really looking forward to it. And I think since it has to do with a city that checks in here a lot to watch us. So, all right. Well, that's it. Another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. We will talk to you tomorrow on Campus Friday here on the Eye Test.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.